15 minutes into this game, tears, friends, tears! The Last of Us, with apocalypse scruff, because it's necessary. So The Last of Us is a post-apocalyptic survival horror game brought to us by the studio that gave us the Uncharted series. Different creative director behind the game, but you can still tell this is the same studio that gave us Uncharted. And in The Last of Us, it's been 20 years since civilization itself fell to this parasite that turns people into weird parasitic zombie-like things that aren't actually undead, but they're still zombie-like enough for me to call them zombie-ish people. And now there are quarantine zones. You don't feel like the entire government's fallen. There is still a presence of authority in the United States, at least. But for the most part, yeah, shit's terrible. And Joel, the guy you play as, has to escort this 14-year-old girl named Ellie across post-apocalyptic America. And from there, we have ourselves a sweet-ass game. First of all, let's talk about the graphics. The graphics in this game are fucked up good. They're so good. I don't think I've seen graphics this good on the PS3. The lighting, the shading, the motion capture of the characters, the way their facial expressions and their mouths move to what they're saying, they feel like real people. There's this cutscene where you're driving a car and the camera's looking in at you from outside the windshield, and it's raining and the rain's hitting the windshield and you're like, that's rain. Like legit rain, I'm telling you. This game looks great. The scenery in this game is crazy too. I mean, when you're outside, you're looking up at the buildings are all leaning on each other. You're like, there's just nothing left of humanity. It's all gone. It looks and feels like the apocalypse. After that, the gameplay's awesome. Familiar? Yeah. Awesome? Absolutely. The game is a survival horror game. It's almost like Naughty Dog was like, hey, Capcom, we're gonna show you something. We're gonna show you that survival horror still works. You don't need to take your survival horror franchise and turn it into an action franchise. Watch, hey, Last of Us. Weapons and gameplay, all top notch. Most games like this, you either have your entire arsenal that you've come across right at your fingertips, or they do the thing where you can pick and choose two guns, and those are the guns you have to work with. This goes somewhere in the middle. You do have a couple guns that you have to choose from among your arsenal, but those are just on your hotkeys. You have the rest of your weapons in your backpack. You can't just change them out at the push of a button. You can pick a couple that you can change out at the push of a button. But if you're like, all right, I want my pistol and my shotgun, not my rifle, you have to hold X. He goes into his backpack. Then you put the gun you want into your hotkey, and now you have those two guns to choose from. So you have your arsenal, but not all of your arsenal is on one button change out. That was a good way to do it because it also makes sense. If you're in a post-apocalyptic world and you come across a gun, you're not gonna be like, I'm sorry, I can only pick two. Yeah, people who do that are called dead people. And the crafting was really good too. I hate crafting in games. I'm gonna rephrase that. I usually hate crafting in games because usually games don't do crafting well. It's usually this long convoluted thing where I'm like, I could go through all that work or I could just work with the weapons I have. I think I'll do that. I'll go with that option. But in this game, crafting is pretty easy. You get your scraps and you combine them to make something. The best part about it is these crafted weapons are really relevant weapons. Can anyone out there argue me on the perspective that the best weapons in the game are the Molotov cocktail and the nail bomb? Best weapons in the game. Then you use them and you get more scraps, you create more of them. Stealth kills are great too. You start getting really good at stealth kills. In The Last of Us, ammo is pretty limited. Not like unbearably limited, but you do end the game with more ammo than you need because you conserve it because you're like, I need to conserve my ammo. So you get really good at stealth kills, and when you grab someone into a headlock and choke them out, the dude's just struggling. The way he's slapping your head, you're like, I really feel like I'm killing somebody. Did a really good job at making the body language in this game feel like real people, even when their eyeballs are rolling in the back of their head and they're dying because you're choking them out. It's not murder. It's justified. It's the apocalypse. It's kill or be killed. And as cool as Joel was, he's the guy you play as. He's damaged. You can tell that, I mean, he's hardcore because he's been among this shitty world for 20 years. You can tell he's done some dark things to survive, but he's learned how to survive. Fact of the matter is, friends, Joel doesn't steal the show. Ellie does. Ellie was just awesome. She's one of the coolest characters I've seen in a game lately. The fact is, if Ellie sucked, this game would suck. We'd all be like, oh, an escort game in which you gotta pal around with this annoying girl and why am I playing this? But the fact is, Ellie's awesome, and I love the fact that games are now learning how to make escort-based games fun. Before we were like, escort mission in a game. I don't like this mission. But in BioShock Infinite, this chick's just throwing ammo for you. Like, here, I found these things for you. You're like, best escort ever. I mean, escort as in the mission, not saying she's an escort. And now we have Ellie, and Ellie's not like this really reserved, nice girl that you know is gonna get corrupted from the situation. She was born after a civilization fell, so she knows this world. She has attitude, she swears, she says what's on her mind. She has heart, is the word I'm looking for. The girl has heart. She is the best young adult I've seen in a game ever in my life. Yeah, I'll phrase it like that. I don't think that's offsides. I love character growth, and this game did character growth very well with Ellie. And I'm telling you, in the game itself, there were a few times I was welling up. I was like, sad. Not just sad, I'm not saying it was sad, but it was touching. There were just touching moments in the game where you're like, damn. And everyone's shitty in this game. Like they're assholes. There are a couple of nice-ish people you meet in the game, yeah, for sure. But I guess the game's so based in reality that they can't be too nice. No one in this game is ever like, oh yeah, I'm a perfectly great human being and I'll never irritate you. I like that. I take notes in this game and I'm like, okay, humanity falls. Let's just look at The Last of Us, and then we'll go from there. A really cool thing about the fungus parasite that wipes out humanity in this game is that it actually is one that exists in our world. A variation of it anyways, based on a cordyceps fungus. This thing exists, but it only affects ants and bugs in the tropical rainforest or some shit. In this game, it's now moved to humanity, but it's always really cool when they take something that exists in the real world and they tweak it, and they're like, well, I don't know, maybe. And if this does happen, it'll probably end up like The Last of Us. The multiplayer is pretty fun. It puts you as a person in these factions in this world that is crumbled. You go around, you do your missions. I play games like this not for the multiplayer. I mean, I have fun playing the multiplayer, but I never walk away from the multiplayer going, that is totally what the game's built around. Play that over and over again. Now, I'm probably gonna play New Game Plus after I beat this game and play through the game again. But the multiplayer is fun. Get a few friends, get some headsets, and knock yourselves out. You'll have fun with it. And then you'll soon be like, where's Ellie? I miss her. And then you'll go back to playing single player. The gripes I would have about this game are a couple times there were glitches. Where I'm trying to knife somebody and they're trying to knife me and it's just like back and forth. I'm like, okay, well, no one's knifing anybody because the game's glitching out. But every game has glitches. And it has that Uncharted type annoyance too, where you get someone right in your crosshairs and then they don't see you, but they just move and you're like, I just got your head in the headshot crosshair. And you just moved at that particular time. I was using the bow and arrow. I love the bow and arrow. You have to get used to the bow and arrow, so you do need to practice with it to get good with it. But when you're good, you're like, I'm Turok the Awesome. I'm Ego my Legolas. In any case, I drew the bow and arrow back and I put this thing right at this guy's head. There were a few people, none of them saw me. They were all facing away from me. Right when I got this thing on this guy's head and I was gonna headshot him, he and everyone else in the room just dropped to the ground. It's like they went down to tie their shoes. I'm like, right then and there, that's when you did it? Come on, game, don't irritate me like that shit. I know some people are like, well, maybe they did see you. Trust me, I played through the game. I know the system of the game. They didn't see me. That happens quite a few times, right? When you get someone right in your crosshairs, like headshot, they'll somehow duck and weave. He's gonna get right there, right on the crosshair, and then he stops and looks around and maybe goes the other way or just looks back and you're like, dude, just go right into the crosshairs. It's what you're supposed to do. If you were an oblivious person like you are, you would do that. Why aren't you doing that? In the end, I love the characters. I love the graphics. I love the gameplay. It's one of those games I was playing and I was like, oh man, it's ending. And then you have another chapter. You're like, yeah, another chapter. It's not over yet. Give me more gameplay. So you're happy to do it. The end just kind of ends to where I was like, couldn't we just have one more scene? Just extend that by one scene? But I get why it is. I mean, the ending totally fits for the entire vibe of the game. The Last of Us was everything I wanted The Last of Us to be and more, because I didn't expect Ellie to be awesome. That's why Ellie is in the front of the cover, because it is her game, and The Last of Us is Awesometacular. Haven't given that rating to a lot of movies this year, but it's good to give it to games. If I can break it down for you, it is like this. It's like the Telltale Walking Dead game had a kid with Resident Evil 4. Two great games came together to make one great game. The world is good today, my friends, because we have The Last of Us. All right, so The Last of Us, have you played it and what did you think about it? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.